I still remember the exact moment my stomach dropped. It was 2:14 in the morning. My apartment was quiet, the kind of silence that only exists after midnight when the world finally stops asking things from you. I was curled up on my couch, scrolling through messages from someone I believed was a complete stranger, until they sent one sentence. "You still sleep with the hallway light on, don't you?" I froze, because that wasn't something you could guess. That wasn't public information. That was something only one person in my life had ever known. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't been talking to a stranger at all. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to MARRIANNE Tales if you love emotional stories about betrayal, healing, and the moments that change us forever. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? I always love knowing who these late-night stories reach, because this one still makes me question how well we truly know the people we trust. My name is Lena. I'm 31 years old, and if you met me back then, you'd probably describe me as stable. Not happy, not unhappy, just stable. I worked remotely as a freelance editor for small publishing companies. My days were predictable. Coffee, deadlines, quiet music playing in the background. I lived alone in a small apartment outside Denver, the kind of place that felt temporary even after 2 years. Most evenings looked the same. Laptop closed around 7, microwave dinner, a walk around the block if I felt ambitious, then hours online, reading forums, watching videos, sometimes chatting in discussion groups, just to feel less alone. I wasn't antisocial. Life had just shrunk. 2 years earlier, I had ended a long relationship with a man named Daniel. 7 years together. These 7 years of building plans that quietly dissolved when I realized I was the only one growing. After that breakup, friendships faded too. People pick sides even when they pretend they don't. So I learned to exist comfortably in small spaces. My apartment, my routines, my thoughts. And honestly, I thought I was okay. Until the night I joined that online support forum. It wasn't anything dramatic, just a community for people dealing with burnout and life transitions. Anonymous usernames, soft conversations, people venting about work, loneliness, relationships. Safe. Or at least, it felt safe. That's where I first saw the username, North Star. They commented under one of my posts about struggling to sleep. "You sound like someone who carries too much alone." Simple sentence, but strangely kind. I replied without thinking, and that was the beginning. At first, our conversations were casual, late-night chats about books, favorite childhood memories, random life frustrations. North Star never pushed for personal details. They never flirted, never crossed boundaries. That's probably why I trusted them so quickly. They listened. Really listened. If I mentioned having a stressful workday, they'd remember it later. If I talked about feeling stuck in life, they'd ask thoughtful questions instead of giving advice. It felt rare. After a few weeks, messaging them became part of my routine. Coffee in the morning, work, then waiting for the small notification bubble at night. I told myself it was harmless, just conversation. But loneliness has a way of turning small connections into lifelines. One night, I asked the obvious question, "Why do you stay anonymous?" Their reply came after a long pause. "It's easier to be honest when people don't see you." Our conversations deepened. We talked about past relationships, failures, regrets. One night, I admitted something I rarely told anyone. I still feel like I wasted my 20s loving the wrong person. North Star replied instantly, "You didn't waste them. You survived them." I stared at the screen longer than I should have, because that sentence felt familiar, like hearing an old song you forgot existed. About 2 months into our conversations, things shifted, subtly. North Star began asking more personal questions. Not invasive, just precise. "Do you still talk to your college friends? Do you ever visit your hometown? Do you regret leaving certain people behind?" The questions made me reflective, but also slightly uneasy. Still I answered, because by then I trusted them. Why, Gi-chan, maybe more than I trusted anyone offline. And that realization should have scared me, but it didn't. It felt comforting. One evening, after a particularly long conversation, they sent, "I think we would have been good friends in real life." I smiled at my phone. "Maybe we still could be," I typed. There was a long delay, longer than usual. Then, "Some things are better left where they are." That was the first moment something felt off. The next few days, North Star disappeared. No messages, no replies. I told myself it shouldn't matter. It was an anonymous forum friend, but I checked my notifications constantly. I reread old conversations. I realized how much emotional space this stranger occupied in my life, and that scared me because I didn't even know their real name. 3 nights later, they returned. No explanation, just a message waiting when I logged in. "I miss talking to you." Relief washed over me before logic could intervene. We talked for hours that night, deeper than ever. They asked about my childhood, my fears, the things I never said out loud, and without realizing it, I told them everything. Near midnight, I joked, "You probably know me better than most people." Their response came slowly. "Maybe I already did." I laughed when I read it. I thought it was sarcasm, a harmless joke. I had no idea how literal that sentence really was. A week later, I mentioned feeling anxious at night. That old habit from childhood, leaving the hallway light on. Something my ex used to tease me about. Something I had never typed, never shared online, never written anywhere. Seconds later, North Star replied, "You still sleep with the hallway light on, don't you?" And that's when the air left my lungs, because suddenly, every conversation replayed in my mind, every strange coincidence, every oddly accurate observation. I stared at the screen, fingers shaking, and for the first time since meeting them, I felt afraid. And in that moment, staring at my screen, something inside me shifted from comfort to alarm. I didn't answer immediately. I reread the message again. "You still sleep with the hallway light on, don't you?" My fingers hovered above the keyboard. There are small details in life that belong only to certain chapters, certain people. That habit started when I was 9 years old after my parents divorced. I hated dark hallways. Silence felt heavier at night. Leaving the light on made the apartment feel less empty. Only a few people had ever known. My mother, my college roommate, and Daniel. Daniel used to laugh about it gently, calling it my emergency son. I swallowed hard. No. I told myself I was overthinking. Coincidences happen, people guess things, but my chest felt tight anyway. I typed carefully. "That's a weirdly specific guess." 3 dots appeared instantly, stopped, appeared again, then disappeared, almost like the person on the other side was reconsidering something. Finally, a reply came. "Just intuition." I stared at it. Something about that answer felt rehearsed, safe, too safe. After that night, I started noticing things differently. The way North Star timed messages, the way they avoided personal details about themselves. Every time I asked where they lived, the answer stayed vague. Somewhere cold, near mountains. Nothing interesting. Meanwhile, they knew my favorite cafe drink, my fear of driving in snow, even the fact that I always rewatched old sitcoms when stressed. Things I didn't remember explicitly sharing. The comfort I once felt began turning into quiet unease. Still, I didn't stop talking to them. That's the part people don't understand when they hear stories like this. Fear doesn't always make you run. Sometimes it makes you lean closer, trying to understand. One night, I tested something. I mentioned a completely false detail. "I'm thinking about moving to Seattle," I wrote casually. In reality, I had no such plan. North Star replied almost immediately. "You wouldn't like Seattle. Too gray for you." I frowned. How do you know what I like?" I typed. A long pause. Then, "You've told me enough." But I hadn't. And now I was sure. Despite my growing suspicion, I couldn't deny something uncomfortable. I still looked forward to their messages. They knew exactly how to comfort me. When work stressed me out, they said the right things. When loneliness crept in, they stayed online longer. When I doubted myself, they reminded me of strengths I forgot I had. It felt like talking to someone who already understood me deeply. Too deeply. That contradiction trapped me. Part of me felt safe. Another part whispered, "You're being watched emotionally." A few nights later, our conversation turned personal again. They asked, "Do you ever think about your past relationships?" My stomach tightened. I hesitated before answering. "Sometimes." "Daniel?" I stopped breathing. I had never typed his name. Not once. My hands went cold. I stared at the message, as if it might rearrange itself into something harmless. It didn't. I forced myself to respond casually. "How did you know his name?" The typing indicator appeared immediately, then vanished again. Minutes passed. Long, heavy minutes, finally. "You mentioned him before." But I knew I hadn't. I checked. I scrolled through months of conversation history. Every message, every thread, every late-night confession. No mention of Daniel. Not once. A slow wave of dread moved through me. Someone either knew me or had access to my life outside that forum. That night, sleep never came. Every small sound in my apartment felt louder. The hallway light, still on, suddenly didn't feel comforting anymore. It felt exposing, like someone could see me. The next morning, I did something I should have done weeks earlier. I opened North Star's profile, no photo, no linked accounts, no personal posts, just comments, almost all responding to me. I checked timestamps. They were online nearly every time I was. Same hours, same patterns, almost like our schedules were aligned or monitored. A thought crept in that I immediately rejected. No, that would be impossible, right? Still, curiosity turned into determination. I searched old conversations with friends, exes, people who knew my habits, people who knew small personal details, and one name kept surfacing in my mind no matter how much I resisted it. Daniel. We hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years. Our breakup had been calm on the surface, but emotionally complicated. He wasn't cruel, just distant, and emotionally unavailable in ways that slowly made me feel invisible. When we ended things, we promised space. No drama, no contact, clean separation. At least, that's what I believed. That evening, I logged into the forum determined to confront North Star. My heart pounded as I typed. "Have we met before?" 3 dots appeared instantly, paused, disappeared, reappeared, then finally, "Why would you think that?" I didn't soften my tone. "Because you know things I never told you." Long silence, the longest since we started talking. I felt my pulse in my ears. Then a message arrived. Slowly, 1 sentence at a time. Sometimes people recognize each other even when they don't mean to. Cold fear spread through me. I typed back, "Are you someone from my real life?" No reply. Instead, another message appeared. Would it change how you feel about our conversations?" And that question terrified me more than any answer could have, because suddenly I realized whoever this person was, they cared deeply about how I felt, not like a stranger, like someone already emotionally invested. I closed my laptop. For the first time since meeting North Star, I didn't reply. I needed distance, perspective, air. I walked outside even though it was late and cold. Streetlights stretched across empty sidewalks. My thoughts raced through possibilities. Old friends, coworkers, family, Daniel? The idea felt absurd, yet it refused to leave. Daniel had always known me well, too well. He knew my routines, my insecurities, my nighttime habits, and he had struggled after the breakup, at least according to mutual friends. But no, Daniel wasn't manipulative. He wouldn't secretly talk to me online. Would he? My phone buzzed. Forum notification. Another message from North Star. I hesitated before opening it. When I finally did, my heart dropped again. I never meant to scare you, Lena. I froze. I had never shared my real name on that form, not once. I never meant to scare you, Lena. I read the message 3 times, maybe more. My real name stared back at me from the screen like it didn't belong there. My username on the form was anonymous. My email wasn't connected. I had never introduced myself, not once. My throat tightened. This wasn't coincidence anymore. This was someone who knew me outside the internet. My fingers trembled as I typed. Who are you? The typing indicator appeared immediately. Stopped. Appeared again. Then nothing. A minute stretched painfully. I watched the screen the way people watch hospital monitors, waiting for movement. Finally, someone who cares about you. A chill ran through me. That sentence should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt invasive, possessive, wrong. I closed the chat, logged out, shut my laptop completely. My apartment felt smaller that night. Every memory of our conversations replayed differently now. Every comforting word suddenly felt calculated. Had they been studying me, testing me, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves? I barely slept. Every notification sound made my heart jump. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I searched Daniel's social media. His profile was private, minimal posts, no relationship updates, nothing unusual. But something caught my attention. He had joined several online discussion forums recently. Technology forums, mental health communities, anonymous spaces. My stomach dropped. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. I needed proof. Real proof. That night, curiosity won again. I logged back into the forum. North Star was online instantly, like they had been waiting. A message appeared before I even typed. I was worried you wouldn't come back. My chest tightened. I forced myself to stay calm. I need honesty, I wrote. Pause. Then, I've always been honest with you. I almost laughed at that. No, I replied. You've hidden who you are. The typing bubble stayed for a long time, longer than ever before. Then a message came that made my stomach twist. I didn't hide because I wanted to hurt you. I hid because you wouldn't have talked to me otherwise. My breath caught. There it was. Confirmation without confession. Suddenly, memories of Daniel resurfaced vividly. The way he struggled to express emotions directly. How he preferred conversations through text instead of face-to-face confrontation. How, near the end of our relationship, he often said, "You understand strangers more easily than people close to you." At the time, I thought he meant emotional distance. Now the words felt different, intentional. I typed slowly. Do I know you from my past? 3 dots appeared, stopped, reappeared. Finally, yes. My hands went cold. I stared at the screen, heart racing. Daniel? The message sent, delivered, read instantly. But no reply came. Seconds stretched into minutes. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Then, I didn't plan for it to happen like this. My vision blurred. It was him. I pushed my chair back instinctively, like distance from the laptop could protect me. My ex-boyfriend, the man I trusted for 3 years, the man I mourned after we separated, had been secretly talking to me for months, learning my thoughts again, listening to my vulnerabilities, pretending to be someone else. Anger rose faster than fear. I typed furiously. You created a fake identity to talk to me? His response came immediately. I just wanted to know how you were. That's not checking on someone, I wrote. That's deception. A long pause followed. Then, you were happier talking to me this way. That sentence hurt more than anything, because part of me knew it was true. I had opened up more to North Star than I ever did during the final months of our relationship, but that didn't make it right. Message after message came, like a dam finally breaking. After we broke up, I realized how much I still cared. You stopped answering messages. I didn't know how to reach you without pushing you away. When I found your forum post by accident, I recognized your writing immediately. My stomach twisted. He had recognized me, studied me, entered my life again without permission. He continued. At first, I only wanted to say hello anonymously. Then we started talking, and it felt like I got a second chance to know you. I sat frozen. Months of emotional intimacy replayed in my mind. Every comforting message, every late-night conversation, and every moment I thought I was safe confiding in a stranger. It had been my past all along. I felt betrayed. But beneath the anger, something else existed. Grief. Because the connection had been real. The support had felt genuine. The person who helped me through lonely nights was still someone who once loved me. That contradiction hurt deeply. I typed slowly. You manipulated my trust. He replied instantly. I listened to you. I supported you. I never wanted to hurt you. Maybe he believed that. But intention doesn't erase impact. For the first time since discovering the truth, something inside me changed. Fear disappeared. Clarity replaced it. He had entered my world secretly because he lacked courage to face me honestly. And now, I held the power. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't searching. I knew exactly who sat on the other side of that screen. I typed one final question. Why tell me now? His reply came slower this time. Because you were starting to figure it out, and I didn't want you to hate me. I stared at those words and realized something important. This story was no longer about him. It was about me deciding what I deserved. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment felt louder than usual. The refrigerator humming, cars passing outside, even the ticking clock above my kitchen sink. Because once your brain notices danger, it refuses to go back to normal. I kept rereading our conversations, looking for clues. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment felt louder than usual. The refrigerator humming, cars passing outside, even the ticking clock above my kitchen sink. I kept rereading our conversations, looking for clues, looking for the moment everything changed. And suddenly, I saw it. Small things I'd ignored before. He knew when I worked late. He knew I hated my birthday. He knew I stopped talking to my sister 3 years ago. Those weren't things I had told him, not directly. But they existed online, scattered across old posts, comments, photos. He hadn't learned me. He had studied me. A cold realization settled in my chest. I wasn't helping someone heal. I was being researched. The next morning, I messaged him. Not emotionally, not kindly, just one sentence. How do you know so much about me? He replied instantly. That alone scared me. You told me. My stomach twisted. I scrolled through weeks of chats again. No, I hadn't. I typed. No, I didn't. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, you'd be surprised how much people reveal when they feel safe. My hands went cold. That wasn't comforting. That was calculated. For the first time, I stopped thinking of him as fragile. I started thinking of him as intentional, and intention changes everything. I opened his profile again. No photos, no tagged friends, no personal posts, just quotes about loneliness and betrayal, a personality built entirely from emotion, but no life behind it. It felt staged, like a set built for me to walk into. That afternoon at work, I couldn't focus. Every notification made my chest tighten. When lunch break came, I did something I should have done weeks earlier. I reverse searched his profile picture. Nothing. Stock image. My breath hitched. Okay, fine. I checked the username, searched it across platforms, and that's when my world tilted. The same username existed on an old forum I used years ago, a private support forum, one I had deleted after a painful breakup. My pulse thundered. I clicked. The account had only replied to one person repeatedly. me. Old posts, old vulnerabilities, old heartbreaks I barely remembered writing. Someone had been reading me for years, watching silently, learning who I was long before I ever noticed them. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't random kindness. This was history. Someone who already knew my emotional patterns, my fears, my loneliness, and then appeared at exactly the right moment pretending to need help. I whispered to myself, "Oh my God." I wasn't the rescuer. I was the target. I decided not to confront him immediately. Instead, I changed my behavior. Short replies, no emotional sharing, no late-night conversations. And that's when he changed too. The messages became frequent, then impatient. "Are you okay? You seem distant. Did I do something wrong?" Guilt tactics, subtle pressure, the same emotional dependence he once showed, was now directed at me. When I didn't reply for several hours, another message appeared. I thought you were different." My chest tightened, because that sentence was familiar. It mirrored words my ex-boyfriend used when he wanted control, and suddenly, memory clicked into place. Not fully, just a feeling, a voice behind a wall I couldn't yet see. That night, he sent something new, a photo, my apartment building, taken from across the street. My entire body froze. I stared at it for a full minute before breathing again. The caption read, "Small world, huh?" Fear hit differently than anxiety. It wasn't emotional. It was physical, heavy, immediate, real. My hands trembled as I typed, "Who are you?" No answer. Then another message. "You said you'd never disappear on people who needed you." My throat went dry. He wasn't just watching me. He was holding me accountable to things I said weeks ago. Using my own kindness as leverage. I locked my doors, closed every curtain, checked the hallway twice. For the first time since moving into that apartment, I felt unsafe inside it. I called my best friend Lena. My voice cracked halfway through explaining. She didn't hesitate. "You need to block him." But something stopped me. Instinct. Because blocking him meant losing answers, and I needed answers more than comfort. So instead, I decided to take control. If he had been studying me, I would start studying him. I reread everything carefully. Patterns emerged. He was always online during specific hours. He referenced local places without naming them. He knew neighborhood details only someone nearby would know, which meant one thing. He lived close, very close. I messaged him again. Calm, careful. Why me? Minutes passed, then finally, "Because you saved me once." My heart pounded. I had no memory of that. None. "When?" I asked, typing bubble, pause, then, "You just don't remember." And that sentence unlocked something buried deep in my past. A memory from years ago. A difficult winter. A volunteer hotline I worked at briefly after college. Late-night calls from strangers struggling with loneliness. One caller stood out back then. A man who never shared his name. Who said I was the first person who listened without judging. Who called repeatedly. Until one night, he stopped calling. I sat upright in bed. No, it couldn't be. Could it? My fingers trembled as I typed. "Did we talk before? On a hotline?" The reply came instantly. Yes. The room felt smaller, air heavier, because suddenly everything made sense. He hadn't found me randomly. He had been looking for me for years. But gratitude didn't explain surveillance or manipulation or standing outside my building. Something had shifted inside him, and I realized I wasn't dealing with someone grateful. I was dealing with someone who believed I belonged to his story. Fear can paralyze you, or it can sharpen you. That night, something changed inside me. I stopped reacting emotionally and started thinking strategically. If he believed we shared a bond, then I would use that belief. I replied gently, "If we're going to talk about this, I need honesty." He responded immediately, relief almost visible through text. I've always been honest with you. I stared at the screen and thought, no, you've been careful, not honest. So I asked the question that mattered most. Why didn't you just tell me who you were? The typing dots lingered longer this time, finally, because I was afraid you wouldn't talk to me again. And in that moment, I understood the truth. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was trying to keep me. But obsession wrapped in gratitude is still dangerous. I needed closure and safety. So I suggested something bold. Let's meet. Public place. My heart pounded as I sent it. Because control sometimes means stepping toward the fear, not away from it. He agreed instantly. Too instantly. Which confirmed everything. He had been waiting for this. We chose a crowded cafe downtown. I arrived early, sat near the entrance, texted Lena my location, shared screenshots, prepared an exit plan. For the first time, I wasn't the emotional listener. I was alert, grounded, ready. Every person who walked in made my chest tighten. Until finally, a man stepped through the door and looked directly at me, and I knew, before he even smiled. The cafe door opened, and time slowed. He stepped inside, scanning the room like someone searching for confirmation rather than discovery. And then his eyes landed on me, and my stomach dropped. Daniel, my ex-boyfriend, the man I hadn't seen in almost 2 years. The man I spent months healing from. The man who once knew every version of me, happy, anxious, insecure, hopeful. He froze when he realized I recognized him instantly. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he smiled, soft, careful, almost relieved, like a performance finally reaching its final act. And suddenly, every late-night message replayed in my head, every vulnerable confession, every perfectly timed response, every moment he understood me too well. My voice came out quieter than I expected. Daniel? He nodded slowly and walked toward me. People around us chatted, laughed, ordered coffee, completely unaware that my reality had just cracked open. He sat down across from me. No hesitation. No apology yet. Just familiarity. Like we had met for lunch instead of confronting months of deception. I was wondering how long it would take, he said gently. That sentence hit harder than anger ever could. Not if, not whether. How long? He had expected this moment, planned for it. I stared at him, trying to reconcile two versions of the same person. The man who once held my hand during panic attacks, and the stranger who spent months pretending to need saving. You're him, I whispered. He nodded again. I didn't want to scare you. My chest tightened. You sent me pictures of my apartment. His expression shifted slightly. Defensive, not remorseful. I just wanted to know you were safe. That was the moment everything inside me clicked. This wasn't love. This was ownership disguised as concern. Why? I asked. One word. But it carried years of confusion. Daniel exhaled slowly. When we broke up, you moved on like I never mattered. His voice cracked. I couldn't accept that. I felt anger rise. Steady, controlled. We broke up because you controlled everything, I said. You checked my phone. You questioned my friends. You made me feel guilty for having a life. He looked down. I was trying to protect us. There it was. The same justification. Nothing had changed. Only the method. I created the account because I wanted to talk to you without you shutting me out, he admitted. The words landed like ice water. You manipulated me. I needed you to see me again. No, I said quietly. You needed access. He flinched. Because the truth removes romance from obsession. I remembered nights comforting him, like encouraging him, sharing pieces of myself again. He hadn't been reconnecting. He had been testing emotional doors, learning which ones still opened. You made me feel responsible for you, I said. Daniel leaned forward urgently. Because you are important to me. That doesn't give you the right to rebuild my trust under a fake identity. People nearby glanced at us. My hands trembled, but my voice stayed calm, and for the first time since this began, I wasn't scared. I was clear. He looked desperate now. I thought if you remembered how good we were together. We weren't good, I interrupted gently. We were intense. That's different. Silence stretched between us, and I saw it happen. The moment he realized this conversation wasn't going the way he imagined. Because in his version of the story, I forgave him. I understood. We reunited. But real life doesn't follow obsessive fantasies. I never stopped loving you, he said. And strangely, I believed him. But love without respect becomes control. And I had learned that lesson the hard way. You don't love me, I said softly. You love the version of me that needed you. His eyes hardened slightly. So that's it? You're just going to walk away again? Again? Like I had abandoned him. Like boundaries were betrayal. And that confirmed everything. He still saw himself as the victim. I stood up. My legs felt steady, stronger than I expected. I didn't walk away, I said calmly. I chose peace. I placed money for my coffee on the table. Daniel looked panicked now. What happens to us? I smiled sadly. There is no us anymore. Not angry, not dramatic, just final. And closure doesn't always sound loud. Sometimes it sounds like certainty. As I walked toward the exit, I felt something unexpected. Not heartbreak, not fear, relief. Because the mystery was over, the anxiety had a face, and that face no longer had power over me. Outside, sunlight hit my eyes. I breathed deeply. Then I did what healing sometimes requires. I blocked every account, saved evidence, and reported the harassment, not out of revenge, but self-respect, because compassion should never cost safety. Weeks passed. No messages, no shadows online. Life slowly returned to normal, but something inside me had changed. I trusted my instincts more. I understood that kindness needs boundaries. And most importantly, I realized helping someone should never mean losing yourself. I used to think being a good person meant always showing up for others. Now I know. Being a strong person means knowing when to stop. Sometimes the scariest strangers aren't strangers at all. They're people who once knew your heart and refused to accept that it moved on. And healing isn't about never being fooled. It's about recognizing your worth once the truth appears. I wasn't naive. I was kind. And kindness is not a weakness. As long as you learn to protect it, if you've ever trusted someone who didn't deserve access to your heart, you're not alone. And sometimes walking away is the bravest ending of all. Thanks for watching. If this story made you trust your instincts a little more, subscribe, because tomorrow's story might feel even closer to home.